started. This section is on what's called synthetic division, which is actually just another way to try and help us find zeros of a function, okay? So number one looks like this. It gives us a function, f of x equals x to the third minus 15x squared plus 7x minus 105. And it wants us to find three different like we're going to find f of 3, f of negative 5, and f of 7. We've done this before, just in a different way. Like the first part wants us to find f of 3. Well, previously what we had done is we had just gone and replaced the x's in the function with that 3 to see what it gave us. Okay, we're just going to use a different method to do this called synthetic division. So whatever you're finding f of, that's going to be the number that you're going to put on the outside. Then you're going to make like this long division symbol. Oh, did I write it wrong? Yep, 70, right here, 71x. Thank you, Abby. I wrote it wrong. So what you're going to put in here are going to be the coefficients of all of the terms of the function. The coefficients meaning the number part of them. So what is the number part of x to the third? The number, its coefficient, you just can't see it, is a 1. The coefficient of x squared is negative 15. The coefficient of x is 71. And then the constant is negative 105. Okay? So here is the flow of these kind of problems. The very first thing you're going to do is just drop down whatever that number is. I'm just dropping down this 1. And then I'm going to multiply whatever is out here times this 1 and put the answer underneath my next number. So I've got 3 times 1, and you put your answer underneath the next number. Then you just add these or combine these numbers straight down and get you a new number here, and then you're just going to do the process over and over. So negative 15 and 3 gives me negative 12. And then start over. 3 times negative 12. Again, you'll put your answer under there. So 3 times negative 12 gives me negative 36. And then add that straight down. 71 and negative 36 gives me 35. So when I multiply 3 times 35, you put your answer there. So 3 times 35 is positive 105. When you do this last part right here, negative 105, you get a 0, right? This is what your answer is. It's kind of like what your remainder is. So that if you were to replace these x's in this function with this 3 and done that math, it would have given you a 0. So what that's telling me is that 3 is a solution or a 0 or an x-intercept. Remember, all of those terms are interchangeable of this function. So if I put this in my y equals and graphed it, it would cross the x-axis at positive 3. That's what that's telling me. Okay, now all you're putting in your little answer spot right here is just what you got as this last number right there, which is a 0. Okay, the second part of this one is it also wants me to find f of negative 5. So let's see if this is a 0, which means now I'm going to be using the same thing, but I'm just going to do it with negative 5. Same coefficients, 1, negative 15, 71, and negative 105. Drop down your 1. Negative 5 times 1 gives me negative 5. Combine those, negative 15 and negative 5 is negative 20. Negative 5 times negative 20 is positive 100. When I add that, I get 171. Let's see, I don't know what this is. Negative 5 times 171 gives me negative 855. And when I add that, negative 855, and I combine that with negative 105, it gives me negative 960. So negative 960 is what f of negative 5 is. So in other words, negative 5 is not an x-intercept or a 0 of this function. And then it wants you to do one more with this function. The last one we're going to do is f of 7. So again, just using the 7, same coefficients. So 1, negative 15, 71, and negative 105. Drop down my 1 to get us started. 7 times 1 gives me 7. Combine that, negative 15 and 7 gives me negative 8. 7 times negative 8 is negative 56. Let's see, what 71 and negative 56 gives me? Positive 15. And the last one, 7 times 15 does give me positive 105. So when I combine that, negative 105 and positive 105 does give me 0. So that's pretty much what we're going to do on all of these. All right, number 2, same thing. The function is f of x equals x to the 4th minus x to the 3rd minus 5x squared plus 38x minus 40. And it wants me to find f of negative 4. So negative 4 is what goes on the outside. Then underneath my division symbol, all the coefficients, right? Just the number part. So in front of x to the 4th is a 1. In front of x to the 3rd is a negative 1. In front of x squared is a negative 5. In front of x is 38. And then your constant is negative 40. So let's see what negative 4 will do with this. I'll drop down my 1 to get us started. So negative 4 times 1 gives me negative 4. Combine these straight down. Negative 1 and negative 4 is negative 5. Negative 4 times negative 5 is 20. Negative 5 and positive 20 is 15. Negative 4 times 15 is negative 60. So let's see what that is. 38 minus 60 gives me negative 22. And the last one, negative 4 times negative 22 gives me positive 88. And when I add this straight down, negative 40 plus 88 gives me 48, which means f of negative 4 using this function would be 48. So in other words, what that's saying is, this is always your x, right? It's saying that when x is negative 4, y isn't 0. That's what makes it not be an x-intercept, because the y at negative 4 is not a 0. The point would actually be, if you replace these x's with negative 4s, it gave you 48. So that's where the point is going to be, at negative 4, 48. So when x is negative 4, y is 48. That's what that's telling you. All right, let's look at number 3. All right, my function on number 3 is f of x equals 2x to the third plus x squared minus 9x plus 18 . And it wants me to find two things. The first thing it wants to know is negative 3 a 0? And then it's going to say, is 2 a 0? So we're going to use negative 3 and 2. We're going to do synthetic division on this function with both of those numbers. So again, my coefficients are going to be 2, 1, negative 9, and positive 18 on both of these. So when I do synthetic division on both of these, right, this number right here that I get at the end, my remainder, what's left, is going to tell me whether or not these are zeros or x-intercepts of this function, right? So the only way the answer is going to be yes is if the remainders are zeros. So let's see what we get. Just drop down your 2. And then do your multiplication. Negative 3 times 2 gives me negative 6. Add this straight down. 1 and negative 6 gives me negative 5. Multiply. Negative 3 times negative 5 is positive 15. Negative 9 and positive 15 gives me 6. And then the last, negative 3 times 6 is negative 18. So when you do add that, you do get a 0, which means, yes, negative 3 is a 0 because f of negative 3 gave me 0. So that's how you get a yes answer. Let's try the 2. So I'll just drop down my 2. 2 times 2 gives me 4. Add that straight down, gives me 5. 2 times 5 is 10. So when I add this straight down, negative 9 and 10 gives me positive 1. 2 times 1 gives me 2. So when I add that straight down, I get a 20, which means no, that one is not a 0 of the function because f of 2 was 20. Okay, so that's a multiple choice one on number 3. So you're looking for the multiple choice that says negative 3 is a 0 of the function because f of 3 is 0. 2 is not a 0 of the function because f of 2 was 20. All right, number 4. My function h of x equals x to the 4th plus 4x to the 3rd plus 3x squared minus 8x minus 12. Oh. First thing it wants to know is -2 a zero of the function? And then it's also going to want to know, is 1 a zero of the function? So we're doing two different ones. We're either going to get a yes or a no. Put in your coefficient. So in front of x to the 4th is a 1. In front of x to the 3rd is a 4. In front of x squared is a 3. In front of x is a -8. And then your constant is -12. So it's going to be the same thing on both of these, right? So you can just write all that again. 1, 4, 3, -8, -12. So let's check this -2. To get us started, we'll drop down the 1. -2 times 1, -2. 4 and -2 gives me +2. -2 times +2 is -4. 3 and -4 gives me -1. -2 times -1 is +2. And when I add that straight down, I get -6. -2 times -6 is +12. So this last number is my remainder, which is a 0, which means, yes, that one was a 0 of the function. So now I will check the bottom one. See if 1 is a 0. Do the same thing. Drop down my 1. 1 times 1 gives me 1. Add that straight down to give me 5. 1 times 5 is 5. If I add that straight down, I'll get 8. 1 times 8 gives me 8. When I add that straight down, I do get 0, but I'm not done yet, right? I still have this last one to do. 1 times 0 is 0. When I add that straight down, I get -12. So this is my remainder, which means no, that is not a solution. So -2 was yes, and 1 was no. All right, last one. All right, this one's a little more complicated just because we're using fractions. We've got f of x equals x to the 3rd plus 5/2 x squared plus 17/2 x plus 21/2. And we are finding if positive 1/2 is a 0. So we're using 1/2. My coefficients are 1, 5/2, 17/2, and 21/2. So start same way as always, drop down your 1. 1/2 times 1, well, that one's not bad because anything multiplied times 1 is itself. Now, when I add these together, they have the same denominator, so it's actually not too bad. 5/2 plus 1/2 gives me, I'm writing it down here, because that gives me 6/2, which is really just 3, right? 6/2 is the same thing as 3, so that's just a 3. Now you've got 1/2 times 3. Well, if you do that, 1/2 times 3, if you multiply straight across on top and bottom, you're going to get 3 over 2. So 1/2 times 3 gives me 3 over 2. So once again, you're adding fractions with the same denominator. So what do I have here? I've got 17 over 2 plus 3 over 2. And what does that give you? That gives you 20 over 2, which is actually just 10. So 17 over 2 plus 3 over 2 just gives me 10. So now I've got 1/2 times 10 over 1, which gives me 10 over 2. This number is going to be my remainder. So if I add this together, 21 over 2 plus 10 over 2 gives me 31 over 2. So this was a yes or no question, right? Is 1/2 a 0 of this function? The answer would be no, right? Because if it's a 0, this last number right here would be your 0. Okay? All right, and that's all that we have actually for today. That's all of 8.3 was just learning synthetic division. We will use that when we do 8.4 on Friday. Okay? So are there any questions on 8.3? Okay, and I have everybody's name written down for roll today. So I will input that in your attendance. And Friday will also be virtual. So I will see y'all on Friday.